right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2, season 3. BetParx presents Stick to Hockey Live. A lot to talk about today. Anthony DeMarco from the fourth period going to join us momentarily. With some cuts today. Not all of them, not a ton of them, but a surprising one, I think, for a lot of people. Although, based on a few things, not surprising. So we'll get to all of that. Let me tell you about BetParx because it's a great time to get the BetParx app and get in on all the action, whether it's getting your action in on football, college, and pro, whether it's getting your action in on the baseball playoffs, which are about to start. How about getting your action in on the Global Series, which is going to begin, I guess, coming up this weekend, and the hockey season is here. Tons to get your action in on. The BetParx app is easy to navigate, easy to use, and faster to win than ever before. And all BetParx users, new and existing, can use the promo code JASON750, JASON 750. That'll get you a risk-free bet up to $750. And check it out because you're going to love it. It's so easy to navigate, and you're going to get great action in on player performances, same-game parlays, live in-game betting, first to score, strikeouts, yards, rushing yards, passing yards, you name it. It's all there for you. Scorers, you name it. And again, use that promo code JASON750, and that'll get you that risk-free bet up to $750. Terms and conditions do apply. So download the BetParx app today. You do need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also tell you about the great people at Concordville Subaru. You guys have known I've been with Concordville for many years. Bought my first car there in 1989, maybe before some of you guys were even born. And my son going to buy his first car there as well. Why do I keep going back? It's trust. It's Concordville, and Concordville cares. It's not just some saying. It's the work that they've done in the community for many years. It's unparalleled. They were the first Subaru Nation Love Dealer, Promise Dealer of the Year back in 2015. They have 8 years supporting Nemours Children's Hospital of Delaware. They've adopted 15 classrooms once again at the Marcus Hook Elementary School, giving teachers $500 to pick classroom supplies for each of their rooms based on what they want. The donation of thousands of coats to La Comunidad Hispania in Kennett Square over the last 10 years, and that continues to this day as well. So now's a great time to check out the beautiful showroom on Route 202 in Glen Mills. You can check out all the certified pre-owned inventory they've got or pick from a list of incoming Subaru vehicles. It is Concordville Subaru. It's more than just a dealership. They also have an award-winning service department, and you're going to get a free car wash with every service visit. So visit ConcordvilleSubaru.com and check out the showroom again on Route 202 in Glen Mills. It is beautiful. And remember, Concordville cares. Lots to get into here. Joining us right now from the fourthperiod.com, it is Anthony DeMarco. What's going on, Ant?
Not much, man. Kind of good timing for us to start as a relatively significant cut from camp today, eh?
Yeah. They reduced the training camp roster today to 34 players. There's still more to go. They cut 10 today. Well, they got to get on the move here too, because the Phantoms start preseason and they don't have enough players at this point. So they're going to have to send more. But the big one is a guy that we all assumed was going to be on the roster on the third pair alongside Justin Braun, and that is Cam York. Were you surprised to see it?
I mean, yes, but no. He had a bad training camp, right? He wasn't impressive in the games. He got burned by, who was it? Cizikas on the shorthanded goal the other night. And he's a guy that they were expecting a lot from, especially the way he played last year, especially when he was moved up to the right side with Ivan Provorov. And in a year where many of us, including you and myself, were talking about that, this is the year they choose between Travis Sanheim and Ivan Provorov because of all their depth on the left side of the defense. He was kind of the guy who you thought would step in right away and maybe push one, if not both of those guys for playing time. And just to see him struggle as much as he did, and then you started hearing Tortorella's comments about him that they think that there's more there, and that they were going to push him, and why wait if we think the talent is already there. We knew that they were going to be hard on him, and they pulled the trigger, right? And I saw someone put this on Twitter. I think he just responded to me. That does kind of feel like Giroux's training camp in 2008, 2009, when everyone expected him to make the team. He went down to the Phantoms and was up and became a regular by January, I think it was. But look, it is noteworthy that Ronnie Attard and Igor Zamula are still on the roster, so let's not all panic. It doesn't mean that Connaughton and Sealer are going to be regulars at this point. But even if Zamula or Attard are playing, it still is shocking nonetheless, even given his bad training camp, I still thought that he would make the team. But here we are.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I think there's a chance he could come up before the season starts. I think they want to see how he handles this because there are, like you said, there are other guys here. There's another left side guy in Igor Zamula that's still here. There's a right side guy in Ronnie Attard that's still here. Why send him now and not those guys? You know what I mean? And Torts coaches the mind. Like we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I think that this is also partially, he did not have a good camp. And, last night was his worst performance of camp in that game from an optic standpoint, especially the Cizikas goal. He just got out muscled and they want him to play with more urgency. And Cam's like, you know how he is. He's a real calm player. That's going to be one of the things that is good about his game once he gets it to the right level. But the calmness right now to the game seems to lack a little urgency for Torts.
Yeah, and the thing is that like we know that Torch says he wants to play the kids, which I do think he will play the kids specifically up front. But at the same time, you don't want to hand people roles just based on merit. Like you don't want to hand Cam York the third pairing role just because he's a former first round pick and he had a good stretch of games last year. Like you want him to actually earn that spot. And look, the Flyers on defense, even throughout their organization, are pretty deep. Like it's not like they're up front where like they have nothing. I think that they do have a lot of options here. And get rid of Nick Seeler and Kevin Connaughton from the discussion for a second. And you look at guys like Zamula, you look at guys like Attard, and I think that Zamula specifically, if he just put on maybe 5-10 pounds of muscle, they would have no problem playing him for an entire NHL season. Like I think his mind and his ability is NHL ready. Attard, I think, has showed spurts last year where he was NHL ready, but probably would be best served for more time in the AHL. But I don't think that this should have ever been a slam dunk for Cam York to make the team. And was he the favorite? Certainly. Does he have the highest upside of all those three guys? Yeah, for sure. But you do want him to play the right way, and you want him to have a sense of urgency. You can't just expect things to be given. It has to be earned. And just because the Flyers are not a playoff team on paper doesn't mean that every young guy has to make this team out of merit. There are guys who had the inside track for sure, but even up front, like, do I think that it's a bad thing that Jackson Cates and Tanner Laczynski are seemingly battling for position? No, not at all. Laczynski has the inside track, has the theoretical higher upside, but it's good to see a guy like Jackson Cates pushing him. And it's even good for a guy like Morgan Frost, who I think that look kind of complacent at times this preseason, but recently has looked really good. And you like to see a guy like Morgan Frost kind of taking what's available to him instead of just expecting it to be given. And hopefully that will rub off a bit on Cam York.
Yeah, and with Morgan, he ends up in 5 of the 6 preseason games. Like that's a lot when you got an 82 game schedule ahead of you, and it's probably not ideal for him to have played that much in the preseason, but it's a little bit out of necessity because they're so banged up. Whether it's Couturier or other guys, Patrick Brown, Anisimov comes in and he gets nicked up. He was not cut; he's still here. Anisimov. He's kind of forgotten because he played in that first preseason game, took the puck in the leg, and was hurt, but's been practicing. So I think he's still in the mix as well. And maybe that's going to depend on Jackson Cates, Tanner Laczynski, on if Anisimov is a guy that's still here, or maybe he's a 13th forward. I don't know. Look, he knows the system of Torts. He's been there, done that, but they're still so banged up. But the big news obviously is Cam York, and I'd be I would think that if they start this season without Cam York here and he's been sent down, we'll see if he comes back before the season starts. They've got 8 days before the first game, but I think it's more likely that Seeler's in the lineup than Zamula's in the lineup on that left side on the third pair.
You think Seeler's going to start?
I think that's more likely than Zamula. I do.
Yeah, well, cue the meltdown, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing too. Like Charlie and I were talking about that, and we were in agreement that that's if York is sent down and they start the season with him in Lehigh Valley, then it's probably Seeler. And I said, Charlie, I don't know if I can handle that just from the social media meltdown that would take place.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, right? Because they did say that we're going to play the kids, or Torch said that. But
Hmm.
then anytime a kid isn't played, I've already seen it just like, oh, so much for playing the kids, this, that, and the other thing. They're liars, they're this, they're that. But we know that there's no more goodwill with this team. This team has no more goodwill with the fan base. So every move that doesn't exactly line up with playing the kids or an eye on the future will be scrutinized between here and the end of time.
Sure.
But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if you want to run a stretch of games with Nick Sealer to maybe start the year. I think it was Charlie when you had him on the show. He mentioned that they're kind of afraid of playing Zamula full 82 because of how maybe frail he is,
Hmm.
as if he needs to put on some muscle. So I mean, if we're 2-3 months from now and you have Nick Sealer and Justin Braun as your third pair, then okay, maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe they should start trying to explore something different. But if this is just kind of shot across the bow at a Cam York to be like, look, like this, we don't have to play you. There aren't, playoff or championship expectations this year. If you have to, ride the bus in Lehigh for a couple of months to get your head straight, then so be it. Like, I don't think that developing kids always has to be just giving them endless opportunity in the NHL or in prominent roles. I think it's also about teaching them to earn your spot in the lineup, like we've seen with a Morgan Frost, like we've seen with a Noah Cates, who's arguably been their best player in camp, like we've seen with a Tanner Lazinski, who I know you could probably speak to this better than me, seemed like a guy who was underwhelming at the beginning of training camp, but now seems to be picking up his game with the goal the other night.
Yeah, I mean, I think I look at Tanner and I go, how is it? It's hard to judge his camp because he hasn't played with a ton of skill on his wings on those fourth lines. There's guys injured, and he's out there with oftentimes like Hayden Hodgson, or so how can you actually judge what they generate offensively? I think he's kind of got more and more comfortable, and to me, he looks like a guy that I would probably go into the season with as my fourth line center, especially with Patrick Brown not available right now. So, but there's some decisions to make. Is Jackson Cates that guy? I mean, the Jackson Cates Noah Cates thing is a really good story of the two brothers, but Noah Cates is a much better hockey player.
For sure.
I mean, I think we all agree on that. Jackson, yeah, plays in the middle. They've tried Noah in the middle. He certainly prefers the wing, and I think he's better on the wing. But I think the most prudent move is to have Lazinski as that fourth line center. That's what I believe. Because again, this is about finding out what guys are. And Lazinski has been banged up over the last couple of years. He had the hip issues. He's much healthier now. Both he and Wade Allison, if you can believe it, Ant, have gotten through training camp unscathed. Like, that's a win for those two guys, right? They both played significant time, and they've both gotten through training camp. Wade took some hits and delivered a lot of them, and he seems fine. And it's going to take a lot more than just a training camp and some preseason games for us to have faith that he can stay healthy, but he's off to a good start.
Well, as we start to kind of see this roster get narrowed down, so I guess we're expecting Jackson to be the 3C with his brother and Tippett to start the year. I would assume that's where they're going with this.
Yeah, it could be. I'd rather see Tippett, though, with Morgan Frost, to be honest with you.
And then what, you would drop maybe Konechny down with the Cates brothers, or play Tippett on the left wing, because they did try Tippett on the left wing for a game, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I think on more than one occasion. And he's a guy that's got the transferable skills to be able to play the left side, to play his off wing. I think you could see that. I think Torts he even moved Frost into a wing position just to see what kind of versatility he has. But I mean, I don't know. Who's going to be available though? Too Is Atkinson going to be available come 8 days time? I think he is. From what I understand, they've been very precautious because guys have been getting built up, nicked up even more and more.
Same with Provorov.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Torts last night, and he even pulled back a little bit of the conditioning that he had planned for camp because they were so nicked up. So, and he's a guy that's not going to condition between now and the regular season. This is going to be systems work, and he's not going to practice them more than 3 days in a row. So, there's a lot to accomplish from that standpoint. I think he feels like his guys are in shape. That's not an issue. But he had to pull back and change some of his planned, layout of training camp because he has so many guys that are nicked up right now. He's never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and it's across the league too. Like this isn't exclusive to the Flyers. Like
No,
you
it is. You're
see,
right.
no, it's and I think that it's the last 26 months of this condensed schedule just finally catching up to a lot of players from like the bubble to the quick turnaround in January of 2021, then the short summer in 2021. Last year, you had all the COVID stoppages, which forced the NHL to cram a bunch of games into like let's say February to May, then the playoffs. It's been crazy, right? You're seeing guys just like drop like flies in training camp. And you see like John Tavares out for 3 weeks, Cam Talbot out for 3 weeks in Ottawa. Like the list goes on and on here. But like, so when I look at this roster, assuming Provorov's ready, and assuming TK is ready and Atkinson is ready, and I've kind of long speculated that the fourth line of this team would probably be Ledzinski with Allison and Delorier. I've seen them skate together a few times in training camp. Is that kind of like where your head's going with the fourth line?
Yeah, that's kind of where I am, and I actually like that as a fourth line.
I
Like, I
really
think
do
Wade
too.
Allison's a third line player, but if he starts out on that fourth line, and I mean, I think that can balance each other.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Delorier, and I know there's a lot of people that think that he shouldn't even be in the league. But if Lazinski, I think he's a big body that can give you some PK time as well, can make some things happen. He can make some plays, and Allison is a guy to me. I mean, there's not many fourth liners in the NHL with a really good release like Wade Allison.
And the other thing is that it's a versatile fourth line because, like you
Mhm.
said, like I could easily see Delorier and Lazinski as a PK tandem for one,
Mhm.
and I could easily see Wade Allison on the first power play unit for
Or
two.
even PP2, yeah.
Yeah, like he's going to be on the power play one way or another, and depending how long Couturier is out, I think that could probably help his cause on a first unit, especially as a net front guy, because I would assume that Couturier would have been there or JVR as well. But I mean, like there's parts in a game that even though that maybe the fourth line, I could see Lazinski and Allison maybe finishing with more time on ice than let's say JVR and
Mhm.
Jackson Cates. Like on a team like the Flyers, and not to kind of kick rocks at them, but like, are there really like set line numbers? Like, yeah, you probably have the top line that will be Lawton, Hayes, and Atkinson, let's just say, or Konechny, a combination of that. But after that, a lot of these guys are interchangeable, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, Delorier will probably get the least time 5-on-5. I think that would kind of be a slam dunk. But is there anything to say that Jackson Cates will for sure get more ice time than Tanner Lazinski? Will Tippett get for sure more ice time than Wade Allison? Will JVR for sure get more ice time than Noah Cates? Like a lot of these players after the top three, top four forwards are all interchangeable, especially until Couturier and Joel Farabee get back. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't stress too much on it. And to your point about Delorier, like he's certainly not a liability. Like he's not a liability on the ice. He could give you a regular shift, obviously provide those intangibles that we know the team was very keen on adding this summer. So I think that would be a very good fourth line to start the year.
Yeah, there's a guy that DM'd me, I think it was yesterday, and it was, a guy named Brian, and he said that, basically that because I had asked on Flyers Daily about faith in Torts, and year one is a year where he really kind of figures out who's along for the ride, who fits, who doesn't, and all that stuff. And his records in year one, first full seasons, whether it was with Tampa, the Rangers, or with Columbus, was exactly that, figuring out who that, who was part of the solution, who was part of the problem, and then moving forward. Because he doesn't make the playoffs in year one of any of those seasons. But then he follows that with 4 straight years of playoffs at a minimum for all of those teams. So, and he mentioned that, how if Torts is using a year to evaluate with players like Hayes, Ristolainen, and Delarier, they're stone cold locks to be here next year. And he said, mark my words, he's going to loathe all three of them. Well, first and foremost, I think he really likes Kevin Hayes. He may drive him crazy as a player, and he's going to push really hard. But Torts always has a guy like that. And as far as Delarier goes, the reason why Delarier is here is John Tortorella. Do you think that Chuck Fletcher signed Nick Delarier to a 4-year contract without the sign off of John Tortorella? And I think that
No,
Torts was the reason why he came. And he was the piece that Torts wanted. So To me, that was one of the coach's request of a player that he wanted. So there's this notion that he, doesn't want any part of him. I think that's bullshit on a plate.
No, I think that he likes having those players that drag the other teammates into the fight. And look, we know that the Flyers kind of were missing that last year in terms of a guy who could skate a regular shift. Like, look, I love Zach McEwen, but should he be an everyday NHLer? Probably not. I think that as a 13th forward, he's perfectly fine, well liked in the room. If he has to tag in for, let's say, 30 to 40 games, no issue there. But you also want a guy who can help you on the PK. You also want a guy who's, an average defensive NHL player at 5-on-5. And I think Deslauriers gives you that. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's not like John Tortorella got here and then was taped to a chair while Chuck Fletcher was signing players. It was like last summer. It was like last summer where he went out and got players that he thought AV wanted, who AV had to sign off of. Like, they have to work in tandem. And look, I know a lot of people hate Nick Deslauriers here, but I remember talking to someone last week about it where they were saying to me, well, he's blocking Isaac Ratcliffe. And I'm just like, if you're in a prospect and you can't dethrone a fourth line left winger for his NHL job, you're probably not worth a whole lot. And that's no shot at Isaac Ratcliffe, but like, I personally don't think he's ever going to be an everyday NHLer. I think that boat is slowly sailing on Isaac Ratcliffe. We're 6 years post his drafting now. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe he turns it around, but like the other part about this is that most players aren't going to just become NHLers just to be a fourth line player. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Lazinski's there. Yeah, Allison's there, but we've already kind of added that they're going to play higher roles because of the nature of the Flyers, because of their roster construction. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are kind of conditioned to hate Nick Deslauriers just going into this because they gave him a contract that was kind of exaggerated, but I mean, that was par for the course given the market for the guy. And if you look at contracts that Ryan Reeves has gotten historically, Matt Martin has gotten historically, this is a going rate for heavyweight fighters who could also give you regular shifts in the NHL. So it's not like completely out of left field. Like, that's what those kind of guys get. But I mean, I think just with everything else that went wrong in the eyes of the fan base this summer, they just want to pick on Nick Deslauriers. And I mean, I was expecting it. Were you expecting anything different?
No, I was not.
Yeah,
I was expecting it as well. Any of the other, I mean, I look at some of the other players sent down. Nothing surprising. Tyson Foerster had moments in camp where I thought he was good, and he's definitely taken a step and progressed. But he still has a little bit of a ways to go. He's getting much closer, and we'll see what the first 25 games of the Phantom season looks like for Tyson and where the Flyers are, and we'll see about him coming up at that point. To me, that's an interesting one to watch down there. Ole Lycksell, not surprised there. He really, opened a lot of eyes and, got some people excited in the beginning of camp, but as camp kind of went on and, the veteran players started dialing in more, the impact of Lycksell was minimized a bit. I mean, Adam Ginning, Karashik, York's obviously the surprise. Nagel, no surprise. Brooks, Willman, and Belpedio placed on waivers. Nothing really surprising in these cuts at all to me, other than York.
No, York's the only guy that has really stuck out here, right? And even with the goaltending, like Sandstrom obviously has been banged up recently, but like, we saw Urson and Grosnick play the other night against the Islanders. No one was really expecting Grosnick to make the NHL. I know that they were saying that he was battling, but I think he was always pegged to go down to the AHL. So aside from York, everything kind of seems to have gone as expected here. Obviously, the injuries to like Provorov and Konechny and Atkinson and Couturier, the endless list here. Anisimov has kind of made it hard to kind of follow along and get an idea for what the opening night lineup would be. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's nothing really shocking here except from the Cam York thing. And I believe Tortorella just was quoted, I believe Charlie O'Connor just put it, that they're expecting Adard and Zabula to go down before the start of the NHL season. So I guess they're going to start the year with Sealer and Connaughton as your 6-7. And I mean, obviously you'd like to see one of the kids play in that role for sure. I mean, I guess they really are keen on Zamula putting on some more mass before they think he's ready for a full 82 season. Adard, I think, showed flashes last year, but maybe not the perfect guy to play in 82 games, and especially the fact that he's a right shot D. I don't know how he would fare on the left side. I know that plays a factor in it, but look, obviously not ideal. Nick Seeler starting, but I mean, I think that's just more of an indictment on Cam York's poor training camp than it is the coaching staff refusing to play the kids.
Yeah, here's a quote from Tortorella. This comes through Bill Meltzer's Twitter. Tortorella on Cam York, he said, quote, "We were honest about what we need with him, but also on what we project him to be. He was quiet with us. You'll have to ask him how he took it." So that's how he basically being asked how he reacted when they told him that he's been sent down to the Phantoms. So Provorov said, "We might not be the most skilled team, but we'll be the most conditioned and the hardest to play against. We're working toward that. We all want to have a better season as a team and individually." From what I understand, Provorov, if these games meant something, he would be able to play. Ristolainen wanted to play last night, but they held him out. So, when you're that nicked up, you don't want to take any more chances with any more preseason games. And they're in a weird situation with this now. 8 days till the first game. Huge gap between the preseason and the regular season starting. I don't remember a gap like that.
The NHL, the schedule is always perplexing to me because the first game of the season in the league is on Tuesday or next Wednesday?
Well, I think before that because of the global series, but the first North American games are next Tuesday, the 11th, and the Flyers start the 13th. But then, the other thing is like the Islanders played last night and they still have 2 more preseason games. Flyers are done. The Islanders still have 2 more. When they played the other day on Sunday, that was the Islanders' 3rd preseason game. It was the Flyers' 5th.
Well, yeah, it's like the Senators and the Habs played last night, and they have 2 more games against each other before the end of the year or before the end of preseason. And it seems that usually the season starts right after Canadian Thanksgiving, and our Thanksgiving is this Monday. So, yeah, that makes sense. I know we're weird. We have it in early October. But the NHL schedule has always been puzzling to me. I think even last year, the Flyers had a really bizarre stretch, if I'm not mistaken. They started on with a homestand, right, against Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Vancouver in game 2. Yeah.
Yeah, Vancouver. Then they had Seattle.
Game 1. Yeah.
And then they had Seattle and Boston, I think.
Yeah. So first 4 games, I think, were at home.
And they're starting at home against the Devils this year?
Yep. Yeah, Thursday the 13th against the Devils at home. I have the schedule here. There it is.
Yeah, I probably should just print that out and stick it up in my office here. But I mean, they always
changed a bunch too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's so hard to follow.
So Thursday against the Devils, Saturday against Vancouver. Those both are at home. Then how about this right away? Right out of the gate. Let's head down to Florida for October 18th and 19th, a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, Tampa, Florida, and then at Nashville on the 22nd.
Jesus.
Yeah. And then you come home from that and you get San Jose, Florida, and Carolina. I mean, it's a tough month.
Jeez.
NHL schedules are fucking hard, man.
And then I'm sure they have that quintessential Canadian road trip somewhere in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, then to start November, you get the Rangers on the road so you start off the month of November at the Rangers, at Toronto. That's a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, at Ottawa, and then you come home. You take on St. Louis and home for one St. Louis. Then you go to Columbus. Then you get Ottawa and Dallas at home. Then you go to Columbus, Boston, Montreal. Then at home against Calgary, at Washington, at home against Pitt, at the Islanders. At home against the Islanders. It's crazy.
It's a crazy fucking schedule, but at least it'll probably be less condensed than last year because of all the COVID stoppages. They missed the beginning of last year when they were just canceling games and moving them, which led to them backing out of the Olympics. It was just absolutely fucking nuts last year.
Yeah. So we'll see where this all goes, but it's pretty bananas. I got to keep the episode short today because I feel like death on a stick.
Okay.
I'm fighting these fucking allergies and this cold. Like I came home last night from the game. I got home at 11:15, and I wear a suit to the game. So I'm up in the bedroom before I come down to do the podcast as I'm getting out of the suit and in the comfortable clothes. And I have a fucking sneezing attack. The dog's in there. My wife's in there. I'm sneezing 30 times. She's like, Jesus Christ.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, you look like shit too.
Oh, so. I just can't shake this fucking thing. It's brutal. So, So we'll see where this goes, but we'll wrap it up here, Ant, because I'm shit.
That's all good, man. Go rest it up.
Yeah, we'll see where the cuts go. Thanks for doing this, brother. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, man. Take it easy.
There he is, Anthony DeMarco from the fourthperiod.com. And yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just going to keep it short today because I'm not feeling well. So it is what it is, but we'll crank her up and get healthy and get ready even better going forward. But just not feeling well at all. I'm sure I sound like shit. I know I look like shit too. Let me tell you everybody about BetParx, because the BetParx app is fantastic. No matter how you feel, you can get your action in on the BetParx app and get your action in on all the different sports, whether that's baseball playoffs, football, college or pro, hockey coming up, regular season next week. Tons to get your action on: player performances, same game parlays, live in-game betting, you name it, first to score, exact score, halves, quarters, you name it, you can bet it all. So check it out. Get the BetParx app today and use the promo code JASON750, JASON750. That'll get you a risk-free bet up to $750, and it's for new and existing users. Terms and conditions do apply. So use the promo code JASON750, and again, that'll get you that risk-free bet up to $750. Terms and conditions do apply. So download the BetParx app today. You need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also to Conquerville Subaru. Check out Conquerville Subaru on Route 202 in Glen Mills. There you can check out their great certified pre-owned inventory. Also pick from a list of incoming Subaru vehicles and much more than just a dealership. Also great service department. With every service, you get a free car wash as well. So make sure you visit ConquervilleSubaru.com. Online, check out the showroom on Route 202 in Glen Mills as well. And it's a fantastic dealership, and Conquerville cares. So make sure you check that out as well. So we'll wrap up this episode. We'll be back Friday. I'm hoping I'm going to be feeling better by Friday to get a little bit more in depth as more cuts happen and we get closer to the regular season. But everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for dealing with my looking like shit and for not feeling well, but we appreciate it. So we'll be back Friday with another brand new episode of BetParx Presents Stick to Hockey Live. Have a great day, everybody, and try not to get this cold.